Hello, the lovely world of YouTube. Peace and blessings to you. So I've got a bit of a hot topic today. As you can tell from the title, I think it's going to be a bit divisive, but I think it's a very important topic, and yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Hang on, let me mute that. So last night I joined a little stream, and the 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 topic came up of keeping the commandments, and the host of the show was sort of saying that we keep the commandments. And I was sort of trying to say that no, we do not keep the commandments. Um, and I mean, I myself, I do not keep the Ten Commandments. I don't keep the Sabbath according to how it's written in the Old Testament. Um, I'm a human. I lie occasionally. I haven't stolen anything for a very long time, but I stole a few things as a child. Um, all the things of the Ten Commandments. I'm guilty of at least one of them. If I was judged by the Ten Commandments, then I would be guilty of one. And it says here, James 2:10, for whosoever shall keep the whole law, yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. So therefore, if you're going to teach the Ten Commandments and you're going to fail at one of them, then you are guilty of all of them. Let me add the link as well. I've forgotten to add the link, haven't I? Right, sorry, one sec. There we go. Add that there. And let's go to YouTube, pin it. Pin that. Right, so if anybody wants to join, they are welcome to come up for the debate. And let me carry back on where I was. So, so if we're under the Ten Commandments and we break one of them, so say we're not keeping the Sabbath correctly, then that means we are guilty of murder, of adultery, of stealing, of bearing false witness. We're guilty of all. Just by breaking one, we are guilty of all. So I don't teach the Ten Commandments. I'm not going to tell you to keep the Sabbath, and I'm not going to tell you that you can't commit adultery. I'm going to tell you that you probably shouldn't. Try not to, but it's. I'm not going to tell you that this is the law for us. Jesus set us free from the law. Let me start at the beginning, and I'll read through. So the first verse I'm giving is Genesis 2:17. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. No, I've added this to the text. This is me adding law there. I'm explaining that the knowledge of good and evil is law. Thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. And Galatians 3:13, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. Now, this is not a coincidence that we're talking about being hung on a tree right after we're talking about the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I've put these two together like that for a reason, because you've got to understand that the law, what it means, the curse of the law is being hung on a tree. And the curse of the law is the knowledge of good and evil will kill us. It will unalive us. And so literally the fall in the garden was that we fell under the law. And what Christ did for us is that he redeemed us from the law. We were hung on a tree. When we came under the law, we were hung on the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We were just hanging there. And a hung man is a dead man. So everybody that's hung on a tree is a dead man. If you're under the law, you are hung on a tree. Christ came to set us free from the law, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. So that was against us. which was contrary to us. Think about how many people struggle to stop watching porn. To them, they struggle with the sin. Okay, it is against them. It is contrary to them. It is a struggle. They struggle with the sin. Now, as for me, it's been blotted out. Therefore, I don't struggle with sin. I just if I don't have a habit of watching porn, but if I fill my stomach and I empty my balls, I'm a human. That's what I do. So blotting out the handwriting of ordinances. Well, if all this is blotted out, then I don't need to worry about it. Why would I struggle to keep any of this if it's been blotted out? It was against me. It was contrary to me. It's been taken out of the way. It's been took out of the way. It's nailed to the cross. It's blotted out. It's got nothing to do with me. None of this has got anything to do with me. And if I was to make this my law, then I would have to keep all of it. I can't pick and choose what bits I keep. I can't say that, I can't watch porn. I can't covet my neighbour's wife, but I don't have to keep the Sabbath. That one's been blotted out, but all the others still stand. No. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. So I have a problem with Christians that do not observe the fourth commandment, the Sabbath, yet they tell me to keep the seventh. Are they not guilty of all? If they're not keeping the fourth, are they not guilty of all? What's the point in keeping the seventh if you are not keeping the fourth? Serious question. If you're going to not keep one, then you're guilty of all. So it's either all or nothing. Keep them all or keep none. Are you not guilty of the law? If you've broken one, are you not guilty of the law? When the 10 charges are read out, even if you're innocent on 2, 3, 4, 5 of the charges, the final verdict is going to be guilty because you're guilty on at least one of the charges. So it'll be guilty, even if you're let off on the others. The verdict is guilty because you've broken one. And according to this, then you're guilty of all. So even if you're innocent on the others, if you're guilty on one, you might as well just be guilty on all. Christ has become of no effect unto you, whosoever of you are justified by the law. Ye are fallen from grace. So if I come to Jesus on the judgment day, and I'm standing there before Jesus, and he says to me, why should I let you in heaven? If I say to him, well, the reason you should let me in, Lord, is because I stopped masturbating for you. I stopped watching porn, and so therefore I am justified by the law. That's why you should let me in, because I am justified by the law. Hang on a minute. Did you keep the Sabbath? Did you do everything perfectly? Did you have a fire in your house keeping you warm in the winter on the Sabbath? You're not allowed a fire in your house on the Sabbath. Exodus 35:3. No fire shall be kindled in your home, in your dwelling place on the Sabbath day. So are you keeping the Sabbath? So you're not going to be justified by the law. Nobody's going to be justified by the law. And yet, what we're going to say to Jesus that we're righteous because we stopped watching porn? No, that statement will disqualify you from grace on all the other charges. Even if you did stop watching porn, you're now disqualified from grace on all the other charges. So I'm not prepared to take that risk. I'll put my hands up in the air and I'll say I'll give a confession. I'll say, Jesus, I'm filthy. Please accept me for who I am. Wash me, make me clean. Give me grace, Lord. Give me mercy. I've done nothing. I've not kept your law. I can't keep your law. You're greater than me. Have mercy on me, Lord, a sinner. So you are justified. So you're justified by keeping the seven commandments, the seventh commandment, whilst ignoring the fourth. No, friend, you have fallen from grace. Keeping the seventh and ignoring the fourth, that's going to be a fall from grace. That's not enough. That's not enough. All or nothing. You keep every single letter of the law. Either that, or you give up law and you find morality within yourself. You know, when I was debating yesterday, it wasn't my stage, and I couldn't debate in the way that I wanted to. But I basically, when I said I watched porn occasionally, not a lot, that I was basically equated with being a homosexual child trafficker. It's like, well, you're contributing to the industry. You're it's sort of like, hang on a minute, no. That's a bit extreme. I haven't gone that far. Like I'm not into that. And yeah, I was kind of shocked. And as I say, it wasn't my stage, so I wasn't really properly able to defend in the way that I would have liked to have done. But they were bringing up verses. There was a verse where a guy slept with his mother, his father's wife, and because of that, it was decided that he should be kicked out of the church. He shouldn't be attending church whilst he's misbehaving with his mother in such a way. And of course, like, I'm not trying to condone that. Like, examples like this are not the same as a teenager that is growing up, and is learning about his body, and it's the difference between the two acts of watching something on the internet, or actually doing something with an inappropriate person, it is very different. And right, so let me read the next verse. All right, Romans 10 verse 1. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal for God, of God, but not according to knowledge. For they, being ignorant of God's righteousness and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. So what does it mean to go about and establish your own righteousness, and going about to establish their own righteousness? Let me just check I'm streaming this properly. I don't want to be not sharing my page. That would be terrible. Yeah, no, that's good. Right, so let's back to that. Right, so what does it mean to go about and establish your own righteousness? I would deposit that if somebody is attempting to justify themselves by keeping the law, if somebody actually kept every single one of the 10 commandments, then they're justified by the law. They don't even need grace, because they're justified by the law. They would have established their own righteousness. So going about to establish their own righteousness, that is by law keeping. It's so that they can say, well, look, I've kept the law. Look at me. They're trying to establish their own righteousness by their own deeds, by their own doing. It's like, well, I stopped watching porn, therefore I'm righteous. I've established my own righteousness. I mean, they might tell themselves that. I mean, that's self-righteousness. But the fact is that they have not submitted themselves into the righteousness of God. Because if they had submitted themselves to the righteousness of God, they would know that Christ is the end of the law. Christ is the end of that. What's the verse? He's blotted it out. He's nailed it to his cross. We're not righteous by this. We're righteous by this. We're not righteous by this. We're righteous by this. Where have I got to? Right, so if we stop watching porn, then we establish our own righteousness and are justified by the keeping of the seventh commandment. I've put there just the seventh because I don't think they're keeping the fourth. I don't think they're keeping the Sabbath. Not many Christians are strict on the Sabbath. They seem strict on the seventh, but they're not strict on the fourth. So do we establish our own righteousness and are we justified by the keeping of the seventh? Not at all. No. It's all or nothing. Did Jesus set us free from the fourth commandment, but not the seventh? Show me in the Bible where Jesus says, "Oh, you don't have to keep the Sabbath, but you can't watch porn." Jesus said, "Let me get a Bible verse up now. Hang on, change my window." The favourite verse of the Messianic Jesus one. I'm going to. Right, how do I share this page? I've got to stop sharing that one. Hang on. Because that other window was from a different window. It's a bit longer. Share that one. Share. Okay. I think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy but fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth shall pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. And nothing, the law, from the day it was given till today, has not changed. It's exactly the same. Every single letter, every single dot, every single tittle, it's exactly the same. So if you're going to teach the seventh commandment, then also teach the fourth. Don't tell me that the fourth has been done away with. Don't tell me that the animal sacrifice has been done away with because Jesus fulfilled that part, but he didn't fulfill the rest of it. Right? Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Okay? I'm not teaching the law. If somebody is teaching you that the 10 commandments are valid, but yet they're not teaching you all of them, they're saying, oh, well, you don't have to keep the Sabbath, you can break that one. If they're teaching you that you can break one, but yet the others are still standing, then they're going to be the least in the kingdom. Shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Well, good luck doing them and keeping them. And if you can do them and keep them, then yeah, you will be called great. You'll have established your own righteousness. You'll be like Jesus. Jesus is the only person that ever kept them. You know, he goes through them here. Adultery, he taught them and he kept them. But we can't. It says here in Matthew 5:27, ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, that ye shall not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her, hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that the whole body should be cast into hell. Now, how does that sound to you guys? Is that like, oh yeah, okay, that's easy, I'll do that? You know, what are you going to stop looking when you're walking down the street, when you're going out shopping and you see a pretty lady walk past, or a handsome man, whatever you're into, whether you're male, female, whatever. It's do you not sometimes sort of think, oh, you know, you're not. It's not a deep thought of lust, but you know, it was just a flirting moment. You looked at them and you thought, oh, they're pretty, they're nice, I like them. Are you going to stop doing that? Like seriously, you going to stop doing it, or are you going to pluck your eye out? Is this easy? If Jesus set us free from the law, isn't that an easier option? Wouldn't you rather be set free from the law? Wouldn't you rather have the law blotted out? Wouldn't you rather have the law nailed to the cross? For me, the law's nailed to the cross. The law's blotted out. I wouldn't say that I'm proud to look with lust, but it happens. I'm human. So what? I don't act on it. I don't grape people, but I don't have to pluck my eye out either because the law's been blotted out. I don't fancy plucking my eye out, and I don't feel capable of stopping looking with lust. I'm human. I'm just being honest. I'm just being real about it. We're all human. We're sinners. I think anybody that's trying to tell you that they're holier than thou, I think they're a hypocrite. I think they're lying. I think they're fooling themselves. Right. So okay, where have I got to? Let's go back to. I've got a comment here. Self-righteous men who claim they are saved by keeping the law are delusional. Absolutely. None of us are keeping the law. But the danger is when we are attempting to be justified by the law, because then we're giving weight to the law. And if we give weight to the law, yet fall short of the law, then we're trapped in bondage to this sin. And we struggle with it. It's a struggle with sin. But if we're actually set free from the law, then we don't have to struggle. We can just accept that we're filthy. It's and actually, for myself, from my own personal experience, I would say that it's easier not to watch adult material, knowing that actually you're allowed. I don't know if it's universal, but in England, where I'm from, we have an expression like it's a "don't walk on the grass" sign. When you see a sign that says "don't walk on the grass," you just, for some reason, you want to put one foot on the grass at least. You just sort of want to just jump over the sign and then get back onto the path. It's just because you've been told you can't. There's just something that makes you want to do it. It's just harder because like you can't. And it's when you're set free, then you don't actually have to struggle with the sin. You haven't actually got that temptation in the same way that's pulling you towards it. That "do not walk on the grass" sign is removed, and and it becomes easier. As I say, I've confessed that I occasionally watch porn, but I don't have a problem with it. It's not. It's not like I mean, I'm a smoker. I have a problem with smoking. I can't quit smoking. I would like to quit smoking, but the porn issue, I don't consider it to be a problem. The only reason I want to quit smoking is because of my own health. I had lung surgery about 6 years ago. My lungs are not good, and I should quit smoking. I'm damaging my own lungs, and that I'm more ashamed of. I'm far more ashamed of being a smoker than I am to admit that occasionally I watch porn. As I say, I fill my stomach and I empty my balls. If I had a girlfriend or a wife to fill my stomach and empty my balls, that would be better. I've got and if I did have a girlfriend to fill my stomach and empty my balls, then I wouldn't need to do it myself. But I have body functions, and for me, I'm just serving my body functions. As my body functions, I'm just living according to how my body functions, and I mean, not purely like to how my body functions, but there is self-control and limitations in what I do, but in that sense, though, I don't mind. I don't think I'm going to go to hell for watching porn once a week. I don't think that's a salvation thing. But I'm very concerned for those that have not let the law be blotted out. So let's see. Law-abiding, conditional salvationists, they might claim not to not masturbate. They are nothing more than spirit. Yeah, and honestly, I think that the people need to just own up to it. At the end of the day, when they're trying to say that they don't, I think they're lying, or they're kidding themselves, or it's because they've got a girlfriend, or they've got 2 or 3 girlfriends, and they're not telling anyone. As soon as they're single, as soon as they've gone a month without, they'll be back on Pornhub. You know, they might not tell anybody. They might act holier than thou, but yeah, they're human like us, and they're kidding themselves. I think they're kidding others, and I think they're kidding themselves. So right, hang on, let me get back to sharing. Right, stop sharing that and share screen. This one. Yeah. Right. Okay, so, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. We're free from the law. The whole thing at the beginning. We came under the knowledge of good and evil, the law. We fell under the law. We're guilty under the law. In our filth, in our human filth, we cannot attain to the law. And so we needed somebody to save us. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law. This is salvation. Redeemed, redeemer, redeemed from the law. This is the whole point of why Christ came, to redeem us from the law, because we cannot keep even 10 commandments. We are guilty of even just 10 commandments. And you might even look at them and think, well, actually, they're not even that bad. Then they're not bad, but we still can't keep them. We still need a redeemer. That's how filthy we are. That's how bad we are. So you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. I do not frustrate the grace of God. Okay? For if righteousness came by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. Right? If I was going to establish my own righteousness, we were talking about that in Romans 10, going about to establish their own righteousness. Okay? If I was going to establish my own righteousness by the keeping of the law, then what the heck did Jesus come and die for then? What a waste of time was that? If righteousness comes by the law, then he didn't need to redeem us, did he? There's no need for him to come and die on a cross. It was just a vain, all that was just in vain, for no reason. Keep the law, guys. Forget what Jesus did on the cross. Just righteousness comes by the law, does it? No. I do not frustrate the grace of God. People that think that they are impressing God by saying that they don't watch porn, they're frustrating the grace of God. It's not impressive. They're going about to establish their own righteousness by the law. They haven't recognized what Christ has done. They've made Christ's death in vain, and they frustrate God's grace. But whoever so committeth sin transgress also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. Because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression. If Jesus has blotted out the law, then there is no law. If the law's nailed to the cross, there is no law. There is no transgression. Jesus set us free from sin. Because if there's no law, there is no transgression. Sin is transgression of the law. But where there is no law, there's no transgression. So Jesus set us free, so we're free from sin. Look at this. All things are lawful unto me. All things. Watching porn is. Right, my headset just timed out there. Lucky I heard a little thing as it went off. So all things are lawful, guys. It doesn't mean that it's expedient. Not all things are expedient, but all things are lawful. But I will not be brought under the power of them. They don't serve. I don't serve them. They serve me. I'm not a servant of watching porn, but occasionally I will use porn as my servant to help me empty my balls after I've filled my stomach. You know, I fill my stomach, I empty my balls. Sometimes porn can be my servant, but I'm not the servant of porn. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. So I can accept that, being single, watching porn is not edifying. It doesn't produce children. It doesn't produce relationships. It's unedifying, but it's lawful. Now, if somebody is preaching that it's not lawful for me, then what do they have to say to Paul? Because Paul says all things are lawful for me. But Paul doesn't say all things apart from watching porn. He says all things are lawful. It doesn't mean we should do all things. I've got loads of other verses. I didn't know what verses to add to this. I don't know what verses other people might want to bring up as well. Nobody's joined yet. But at the same time, I don't mind because actually I've been going through this and it's been fine. But yeah, I mean, think about Moses. Moses is minding his own business. He's strolling down the street. He's walking along, la la la, and then he sees off over in the corner. He sees some guy beating another guy, and he's like, "Well, what's going over there?" And he looks a bit closer, and he sees that it's a slave driver beating a slave. What does Moses do? Does he say, "No, that's none of my business. I'm not getting involved"? No, he left the slave driver buried in the sand, didn't he? So did Moses miss the commandment? What one is it? Here. Moses missed that. He wasn't protecting himself. He wasn't protecting his property. He was just walking along minding his own business, and this is what he saw. But he got involved. Did God say to Moses, "Well, I can't use you now. I'm not happy that you did that. You can't leave somebody in the sand." Or did God actually see Moses and be like, "Well, hang on a minute, he's standing up for what's right here. Somebody's getting beaten unfairly, and that's not just." Moses stood up for justice, and I'm impressed. I'm going to use Moses. And then God used Moses. I mean, maybe God had already pre-planned using Moses anyway because of the whole baby in the basket and stuff like that. But who's perfect is what I'm saying. Paul is the chief of sinners. Paul got used, and what Paul was doing was wrong. Paul was there for the stoning of Stephen, and that was wrong. But he still got used. In God's mind, he can blot out our sins because he can blot out the law. He has blotted out the law because he knows the law is contrary to us. We're all going to fall short. None of us are going to be are going to achieve righteousness by the law. Let me get my Bible verses up again. Right, so I can stop sharing that. That what I've just read here on that page I've just stopped sharing. That should be in the description. If you read the description of the video, there were a couple of verses at the end that I added onto this, which I didn't put then back into the description. Hello, CJ. Lord save me from porn. I used to be always looking for better, going through women in real life from porn. Now I'm married and my wife is the second best thing to me after Jesus. Amen. As a man, all I can say is no one can judge you, but if you feel convicted of something, run from it. Yeah, if you feel convicted, then you should follow your own conviction. I don't think that anybody should go against their own conviction, but I would like people to make their conviction how do I say it? You know, they don't need to judge themselves according to the law, because I would like them to recognise that the law is against us, and it was always contrary to us, and therefore it's blotted out. Um, and so therefore they don't have to struggle with that conviction in the same way that they might have done, you know, because when a Christian, when somebody goes to church and the church says to them, well, you know, you've got to struggle with this sin of yours, and then they make it a struggle for themselves and they feel convicted because they're under the law. They've been taught this as a law, and they've been put under this law, and they struggle with it and they feel convicted about it. But what I'm saying is no, don't struggle with it. Don't feel convicted. Actually be free from the bondage to that law, and accept that you can, but you just use it minimally. You don't be controlled by the watching the porn. But you know, if you're thinking, if you're alone and you're having thoughts that you're sort of thinking, well, hang on a minute, these are thoughts that I'm not really wanting or whatever, then, you know, just fix yourself up and those thoughts will go away, and then you can get back to your Bible study. You know, there have been times that, you know, I've been thinking thoughts that, you know, I wouldn't want to share with other people, and you know, I've fixed myself up, as it were, and then my thoughts have completely shifted, and I've, yeah, back to Bible study. It's like, you know, in that sense, it sorted me out. You know, it helped me rather than sort of like me going out and doing other things that, you know, could have been worse or whatever. So it has its time and its place. As I say, the body functions, and we can't deny how our body functions. But we have to be in control of it as well. But yeah. Right. So what verse was I going to go to? I was going to go to Romans 3. Romans. This page. Right. So we know that what things soever the law saith, is saith to them who are under the law, that every mouth may be stopped, and all the world may become guilty before God. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. Now, be aware that by law and knowledge of good and evil, sin being evil. So nobody is going to be justified by the law. Every mouth may be stopped. The whole world may become guilty before God. You might have seen Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort's quite a big YouTuber, and he's probably off YouTube on other platforms as well. But he goes around doing street evangelizing. And he asks people, you know, have you ever stolen anything? Have you ever told a lie? And everybody that he talks to has broken the Ten Commandments. There's nobody that can keep the Ten Commandments. The whole world is guilty. Kind of small, isn't it? Let me make that a bit bigger for you. Too big for me now, but you kind of need it bigger for the screen. sharing it. Hopefully, actually, that's a happy medium. Right. Can you read it all right, guys, or do you need it bigger? Are you watching on a PC screen, or are you watching on a phone? How hard is it to see on a phone? Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, if you're always wanting the best and you're never satisfied, you'll never be satisfied. And yeah, there is a point where you have to take pleasure in the smaller things of life, and it's not always chasing the big things. You have to take pleasure in the little things. It's hard on the phone. I'll try and make it a bit bigger. It's definitely too big for me now, but we'll go with that anyway. But yeah, so yeah, under the Ten Commandments, we're all guilty, and none of us are justified. Let's go 7. Okay, so it says here, God's law is holy. This is a verse that I think that is quite often not fully understood. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law. For I had not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. So this shows, right, that Paul did not know the Ten Commandments by his nature. He had to be taught what the law was, and we learn law from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, but then sin, taken occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscences, which basically is going back to what I was saying about that don't walk on the grass sign. Okay, when you're told that thou shalt not covet, then by being told that you can't, it brings all manner of wanting within yourself. It's like, oh, shall I just put one step on the grass? Shall I jump over the sign? Is anybody looking? Can I run across? It's when you're told you can't, it makes you want to. But for without the law, sin was dead. As I say, it's actually empowering. For me, I found it empowering to be told that I can, you know, because then the desire of sin is not there. It's not as appealing when I'm told that I can. So, and without the law, sin's not imputed. We'll go to another verse in a minute. Actually, no, let's go to it now. 5:13. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Adam and Eve were naked in the world. Adam and Eve were naked and they were unashamed, it says. That's a euphemism for being in sin and not caring. If you're naked and unashamed, then you're in sin and you don't care. But when Adam and Eve acquired the knowledge, until the law, so this is for until is the time in Garden of Eden before they had the knowledge of good and evil, right? But then once they acquired the knowledge of good and evil, the law came, right? And that is what means sin's now imputed. Before the law, sin was not imputed. So Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed because they didn't even recognize their sin. They didn't know their sin. They were unashamed of their sin because they didn't know it. But once they got the knowledge of the law, they became shameful of their sin. They started trying to make clothes for themselves to cover up their sin. And it's now that they are aware of their sin, now sin can be imputed. If they were not to have covered themselves, if they were to have carried on in their sin and to be unashamed, if they did not cover their nakedness, then they would have been unrepentant sinners and their sin would have been imputed to them. We need to erase that knowledge. The knowledge of good and evil is what will condemn us. So for me, as I say, the Ten Commandments are blotted out. Then in my mind, that knowledge is erased. I don't have that knowledge. Obviously, I can talk about it because I am aware of it, but in my mind, they're blotted out. So I don't consume that and digest that and accept that as the law. I don't accept the Ten Commandments. They're blotted out because I'm just going to be guilty. If I'm judged by the Ten Commandments, then I'm just going to be guilty. If on not all of them, then at least one of them. And if I'm guilty on one of them, then I'm guilty of all. So I'm guilty of the Ten Commandments. Let's go to. So right, remember that. For until the law, sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law. Right, next verse, 1 Corinthians 15:55. It's O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. So we were just looking at sin being in the garden, but not being imputed until the law. So if law, the strength of sin is the law, then it's when we came under the law that sin was imputed. Sin gained its strength by being under the law. The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. But thanks be to God, which gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, as I was reading earlier, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law. He blotted out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us. And so if he's redeemed us from the curse of the law, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances, then he has just paralyzed sin. He's taken away the strength of sin. Sin has no backbone to it anymore. We are set free from sin. That was Romans 4:15. Where there is no law, there is no transgression. So if Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, let's go there. Should probably go back to my other slide for it. Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. What was the other verse I wanted? I don't think I mentioned it. Dear, I've forgotten the verse I wanted. But yeah, we're set free, guys. So anyway, does anybody want to come up? How many people are? I've got 4 people watching, it says. We have another look at comments. Okay. Is it Jesus' own obedience, his perfect fulfillment of the law of God? He carried the burden that we were meant to carry. His perfect obedience is imputed to us through faith. Exactly. I think you were here earlier when I was reading Romans 10, and that's exactly right. When we submit to his righteousness, then his righteousness is imputed to us. And it's not that we create our own righteousness. And as I said, trying to establish your own righteousness, it can be seen as a frustration of God's grace. If we are going to establish our own righteousness by the law, then keep the law. If we're going to establish righteousness by submitting to the righteousness of God, to the righteousness of Christ, then submit to the righteousness of Christ and accept your filth. Don't hurt anybody else. Love your neighbour as yourself, but at the same time, be completely free from the law. Do not remain in bondage to those old things, and completely be free. They covered because the thought of lust entered into them. They coveted because the thought of lust entered into them. I can't remember what I was saying at that time, so that's obviously in context to something I was said at the time. But yeah, I think that coveting and lusting, I think is the same thing. I think, but it's human nature. God created man and he gave us lusts, and he said, go forth and multiply, be fruitful upon the earth. He didn't make us. I mean, on there's extremes on either side, obviously, and I'm always trying to find a happy medium. But on one hand, you've got monks. They go and live in a mountain and they choose the life of celibacy, and they don't have any children. I mean, I don't have any children, so I'm not exactly criticizing them, but that's one extreme, that you don't have any children at all. Then maybe there's another extreme where you're an absolute player and you've got 5 kids with 5 different girls, and you can't stop thinking about sex. It's the only thing on your mind. So there's extremes on different ways, and I think that obviously balance is what needs to be found. There's a happy medium somewhere there. But yeah, I think that I don't, when if a bloke says to me that he walks down the street and he sees pretty ladies and he can't help himself but think wow, then I'm not going to hold that against him. Like I'm exactly the same. How can I hold that against him when I'm the same? I'd be a hypocrite if I did that. And if somebody says to me that they're going on a date, but like they're really desperate and they're worried that they're going to make themselves look desperate in front of the girl or something, then I'll be like, well, fix yourself up before the date then, so that you've emptied your balls and that you're not ready. You don't go out there. There was the film I watched, I think it was like something about Mary, I think the film was called. And in the film, it said something about spanking the monkey before you're going on a date, because you don't want to leave the house with a loaded gun. And it's like, fair enough, fine. If you're going to go for a date and you don't want to come across as desperate, or you're thinking about your balls because you haven't emptied them, and you empty your balls and then go and talk to her, and get in her mind and stuff, and like see if you get along. Don't just go there and sort of like straight away be thinking with your balls. You like get that out of the way and think with your brain for a bit. Have an engaging conversation with them. Mind started wondering, I broke, what's this? Save me from death and destruction. Yep. Yes, and I think that when you're in a marriage, if you have committed yourself to somebody, and the understanding is that they're committed to you and you're committed to them, then on that basis you should honour what you've said. I myself, which a lot of people would not understand, is that I would be happy to be like Solomon. Like I would sort of, if a girl wants to be with me, then I'm not going to give her exclusivity. I'm single, which is probably no surprise after I say something like that. But You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a good catch, and all the girls should want me. All the girls should want my babies, and I'm not going to tie myself down to one. Solomon had 700 wives. Solomon was very wise. He had 700 wives, and I see no reason why I wouldn't be okay doing the same. I mean, I couldn't afford 700 wives. A lot of people can't afford one wife, and then if you add children as well, it gets expensive. So, you know, I'm not going to have 700 wives, but I don't necessarily get down with the exclusivity thing like that. I think that one righteous man, it should get all the girls. If you're in a town and there's 50 righteous men and there's 50 unrighteous men and there's 100 girls, then as far as I'm concerned, the 50 righteous men should have 2 women each, and the unrighteous men should have nothing. They don't get a woman. The women should go for the righteous man. And if it so happens that there's only one righteous man and that there's 99 unrighteous men, then let the one righteous man have the 100 women. Because as far as I'm concerned, the one righteous man is going to produce better brood than the 99 unrighteous men. So if the women, if they're intelligent and they're willing to share, then they should go for the righteous man, because the righteous man will treat them better. The righteous man will help them raise their children. Whereas the unrighteous man, you don't know, they could end up getting beaten. They could end up in a relationship they don't like. The children could be abused. So rather than having one each, rather than stipulating that everybody's got to have one each, tell the men that if they want the women, then they've got to earn it. They got to stand up and be righteous. And the women, they're not going to go for looks. They're going to go for righteousness. And women, you got to choose how you're picking your man as well. You know what things you're looking for as well. But yeah, obviously times have changed nowadays, and you know, Solomon's 700 wives isn't accepted in nowadays culture. But I don't think that spreading them out and making everybody have one, I don't think that's necessarily a right solution either. So, right, what I'm going to do, guys, let me bring this back up. Stop sharing that. I'm probably going to end this live fairly shortly. I'm going to share this again. So I'm just going to read through this again. I'm going to give a brief little summary, and I'm probably just going to leave it there. If somebody joins during that time, then they will be welcome to make this more of a debate. But yeah, I've gone for an hour. It is kind of a hot topic, and I'm kind of happy with how I've presented so far. I thought that the beginning part of the stream, I was quite happy with how that went. I was pleased with it, so I almost want to just leave this as a video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to summarize this once more for you guys. Go through it and summarize it again, and then I'll leave it there. So the question is, guys, are you free? And you know, the first thing that God said to us is, do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for on the day that thou eatest thereof, surely thou shalt die. And that's when we came under the law, when we came under the knowledge of good and evil. Galatians 3:13, Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is everyone that hangeth on a tree. If you're under the law, then you're hung on the tree. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. The 10 Commandments that they are against us. They seem good, yet if we fail at one point, we fail them all, and they are against us. It's not in our nature to be able to keep them. I've then listed the 10 Commandments, so I won't read them out. So James 2:10, for whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. So I have a problem with Christians that do not observe the fourth commandment, yet they tell me to keep the seventh. Are they not guilty of all? What is the point in keeping the seventh if you are not keeping the fourth? Are you? I don't know why my headset. It's probably because I've got no sound coming. I guess my microphone doesn't keep my headset on, so my headset just times out. I'll have to play music in my ear in the future or something, I guess, even if it's just on really low volume or something. Are you not guilty? Let's change that to of. That should be of the law. Are you not guilty of the law? So, what's the point in keeping the seventh if you are not keeping the fourth? Are you not guilty of the law? If you're guilty of one, are you not guilty of all? Christ has become of no effect unto you, whosoever of you are justified by the law. Ye are fallen from grace. So you are justified by keeping the seventh commandment, whilst ignoring the fourth? No, no, no. No, friend, you have fallen from grace. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. For they being ignorant of God's righteousness, and going about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of God. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. We by saying that we don't watch porn, by attempting to stop watching adult material, we are going about to establish our own righteousness. So if we stop watching porn, then we establish our own righteousness and are justified by the keeping of the seventh commandment. Did Jesus set us free from the fourth commandment, but not the seventh? You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Is that only free from the fourth commandment, not free from the seventh commandment? Galatians 2:21. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness came by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. I'm not righteous by the law. I've submitted to God. I've put my hands up. I've said, Lord, I'm filthy. Have mercy on me. I can't establish my own righteousness. Even if I was to stop watching porn, I'm going to be guilty of the law. I don't know if I could stop watching porn if I tried. I don't even bother trying because I'm not under the law. It's been blotted out. Righteousness does not come by the law. If it came by the law, then establish righteousness by the law and don't talk about Christ. But if you're going to talk about Christ and what he did for us, then what he did is that he set us free from the law. If you don't believe Christ has redeemed us from the curse of the law, then you have a false Jesus. It's not the right Jesus. Because Jesus redeemed us from the curse of the law. And if you're going about to establish your own righteousness, then you don't need Jesus. Simple as that. Whoever so committeth sin transgress also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. But because the law worketh wrath, for when no law is, there is no transgression. So if Jesus has set us free from the law, then we can't be in transgression. He's made us sinless in that, not that we are perfect by the law, but that we are not under the law. So therefore we're not in transgression of the law, which means we're not in sin. Even if we sin, in quote air bubbles, we're not under the law. It doesn't matter for us. There's no law, so there is no transgression. But we have to have that freedom. We have to find that freedom in Christ. If we don't understand that freedom, and we're just living like a savage, saying that there's no law, then that's not right. Obviously we need to be led by the Spirit, but at the same time, when we are led by the Spirit, we're going to be led into the right way of living. But all things are lawful. We shouldn't be telling each other, oh, you're going to go to hell if you watch porn. You're committing adultery if you watch adult content. Where are they getting that from? If Paul is saying that all things are lawful, then are they not misapplying the Ten Commandments to today? Is this not a misapplication of the law? Paul says that the law is good when the law is used lawfully. I agree. The law is good when the law is used lawfully. But are you going to misapply the seventh commandment to somebody that is free in Christ? For somebody like myself that's free in Christ, that's been set free, all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. But all things are lawful for me. Just because they're not expedient doesn't mean they're not lawful. So who's going to tell me that I can't watch adult material? Who's going to tell me it's not lawful for me to watch adult material? As I say, it doesn't have power over me. I choose when I watch it. But yeah, I won't be brought under its power. And again, it's pretty much exactly the same thing, but in a different verse. You got 1 Corinthians 6:12, 1 Corinthians 10:23. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things, I can't see it. Hide that right there. Edify not. I should have been able to remember that it was edify not. Am I clicking that button? It's still sharing, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, cool. I can hide that in the future then. I don't have to struggle with that. Earlier on, I read over it and I was able to read that. So anyway, yeah. So all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. So when people are telling you, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, they haven't been set free. They don't understand true freedom. At least that's the way I perceive it. That's my perception. I'm not saying everything's good, not everything's expedient, not everything edifies. I don't think that as I say, when I was equated as being as bad as a homosexual child trafficker, I thought that was kind of going to an extreme, just for watching an adult content movie or sharing pictures on the internet or something like that. It's there's plenty of means of watching porn without going to the extreme of being a homosexual child trafficker. You can't. That really was jumping to sort of. I wouldn't say that if you're child trafficking, that's bad. Like you wouldn't want that done to yourself. When Jesus is teaching us the new covenant, he says, "Love your neighbor as yourself. Do unto others as you wish to be done to yourself." Now, I would accept that that's law. Okay, so when it says that all things are lawful for me, I shouldn't do unto others as I would not want done to myself. So in the trafficking of people, it would be a bad no-no. because I wouldn't want to be trafficked myself, therefore I would not traffic others. But yet I myself, I'm not bothered about uploading a picture, sharing it with somebody online, letting them send me a picture and I'll have a look at it. You know, if they make it a video, I'll watch the video. I'm not bothered. You know, I'm by me doing that, that's a long way from being a child trafficker. You know, I'm not condoning that kind of thing. But yeah, I want people to really consider, you know, how many of the 10 Commandments are they keeping? How many of the 10 Commandments are they teaching? If they were judged by the 10 Commandments, would they offend in one point? You know, going back to James there, whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. So, if anybody's going to teach to me the 7th and the 10th, but they themselves are not keeping the 4th, and they're not teaching me to keep the 4th, then their doctrine's not biblical. Because you're either under the law or you're not under the law. There's nowhere where we can pick and choose what commandments we keep, what ones are still valid. It's all or nothing. You're either they're either blotted out, and we're free in the grace of Christ, or they're not blotted out, and we should keep every single one of them. So I'm expecting people to either start keeping the Sabbath, or accept that all things are lawful, but just don't get brought under the power of them. But yeah. So anyway, I'll leave that there, guys. Well, actually, let me have a quick look at the comments. Let me see what I might have. I see that it's Mitch on that guy asking for a friend, mate. Just don't tell anybody and do whatever you want, man. Okay. What you were you? CJ, I might have to listen to that. Or am I misunderstanding? You were watching, were you? It was a good debate on there, or did you actually join? I'll have to listen to it if you actually joined. Yep, we are guilty. We are indeed. If you say you are not a sinner, you are a liar. Absolutely. Yeah, and that makes you a sinner, isn't it? That's the irony. Yes. One question, Steve. If I enjoyed murdering, should I keep murdering if Jesus saved me? No, not unless your victim is agreeing. If it's a consensual, if it's two consenting adults, then I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it as long as both adults are consenting. But I think that consent would kind of not really go with the term murdering. You don't really have a consensual murder. So no, if Jesus has saved you, then you should love your neighbor as yourself. And you should even if you enjoyed your past, then maybe try and move on from it. 1 Thessalonians 4:3, King James. For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication. So yeah, and I think that when we're talking of fornication, that for me is more sleeping around and sort of it's maybe it's like not respecting your partners, just doing it sort of more casually, and then I guess it could be sort of, you know, having out, you know, if you're married and you're sleeping with other people, and I think that, yeah, I'm not necessarily condoning. It's a very nuanced thing, you know. Every case is sort of like because I was thinking of one example to myself, like supposing there was a girl you knew from school, and maybe she's an ex-girlfriend, maybe she's not an ex-girlfriend, but one day your phone rings and it's her, and you were friends with her, and she's crying, and she's telling you that she's sorry that she's got nobody else to call, she doesn't know who to turn to, but you were a friend of hers back in the day, and she's hoping that you can help her, and she's married and her husband's been beating her and she needs help. And it's all like, well, what are you going to do? It's another man's wife. Are you going to go and rescue her and make her your wife again because you had a relationship with her in the past or something? Or are you going to say, well, no, sorry, you're another man's wife, none of my business. I'm not going to come and rescue you and take you to my house and or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's like, I'm not trying to say that that's right either. But, you know, at the same time, you've got to sort of defend the helpless as well, isn't it? If somebody is getting beaten in a relationship, then even if it is another man's wife, you know, you kind of have to get involved. It's the right thing to do to get involved, to take her out of that bad situation, if that's what's required. And you know, and if she hasn't got anywhere else to go, then, you know, put her under your roof. And if you did have a relationship in the past and, you know, whatever, then, you know, not all relationships are gonna work forever. It's like not every relationship was blessed by God. You know, some people find their own relationships on their own. You know, yes, God can find people partners and stuff, but then also people find their own partner according to their own desires. So it's a hard one. People can't always live together and stuff, and I don't know. I've kind of lost my point, but yeah, I suppose, all right, abstaining from fornication. Yeah, it's don't do anything that's going to upset somebody else. You know, if somebody else is going to be hurt from it, if you've committed yourself to somebody, or somebody else thinks that you're committing yourself to them and you're not, then, you know, if somebody else is going to get hurt by it, then don't do it because you're going to hurt somebody else. But if it's sort of like understood that you know, whatever's the situation is of the relationship, and if it's consenting adults that are understanding what they're getting into, then yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm talking about a single male that wants to that can't help himself watching an adult movie, rather more than actually going out and living the high life, as it were, so much. You know, I think that it's better to actually, you know, stay at home and watch an adult movie than to go out, get drunk, try and find a different girl every weekend. You know, that's not ideal either. And I think that it would be better to just to avoiding that, you know, going out drinking and fornicating with a different woman every weekend. I think Paul says, you know, he would rather it that people stayed single. If they can do it, then stay single. If they can't abide, then they should have one wife, he says. But he would have it that everybody should stay single. And so yeah, if you can stay at home and relieve yourself once a week or whatever with an adult movie, then I think that's better than going out every weekend and relieving yourself with a different woman every weekend. Having accidental children, and then you've got the side effects of the alcohol and all that sort of lot that goes down with going out at the weekend as well. So it's a hard one. As I say, I'm not trying to promote it in any way. I don't think it's a healthy thing, and it doesn't edify. I've at no point have I said it's edifying. But my point is just that it's lawful. Having said that, I just want to recap on that verse. So, you know, all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. So I'm recognizing that it's not expedient, and I'm recognizing that we shouldn't be brought under its power. But at the same time, I'm recognizing that it is lawful and that we shouldn't be putting this burden on our brothers and sisters. I know it's a hard burden for the brothers, and I think that it is a burden for the girls as well. I've had girls tell me that they struggle with lust as well. It's But as I say, why struggle? Why struggle with lust when you can accept the freedom in Christ? It's lawful. It's not expedient. Try and lead an edifying life, but don't convict yourselves and condemn yourselves and distance yourselves from God. If you do occasionally watch adult material, don't think that you can't have a relationship with God because of that. That is not going to harm your relationship with God. It's yes, something like watching adult content is not going to put a barrier between you and the Father, even if it's not ideal. It's not a sin that's going to cut you off from the Father. So well, anyway, I'm going to leave that there, guys. An hour and 20 minutes, I made it, and I think I think it's a good stream. If you didn't catch it from the beginning, I think I was on fire for probably at least the first 45 minutes or so. I think it was. I think people need to consider this, because this is something the church and Christians in general, when it comes to being set free from the law, what did Christ actually do? People say believe in Christ, but then what did Christ do? What are they even believing in when they believe in Christ? If Christ did not set them free from the law, then what did he do? And they will tell you, oh, but he set us free from sin. Yeah, how? How did he set you free from sin? The way he set you free from sin is by blotting out the handwriting of ordinances. Because the law got nailed to the cross, and because the handwriting of ordinances was blotted out, therefore you are set free from sin. That's how he did it. That's why he did it. And so if you don't understand that, then really think about what I've spoken today, guys, because this is such an important thing. If we believe in Jesus, then we need to believe that we are free from the Ten Commandments. And if we build them up, I'm going to have to go to one more verse. Let me look up what verse it is. Hang on. Check my notes on my computer to even remember what verse it is. Or it's in, damn. Continue. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this verse. It says something about if I build again the law, if I build again the things which I knocked down. Hang on, let me do a little search for it. Google will help me again. If I again the Galatians 2:18. Share this screen. Sorry guys, I'm professional here. Right, okay, let's start at verse 15, I think. We who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. But if while we seek to be justified by Christ, i.e., through faith, we ourselves also are found sinners under the law, because it's sinners under the law, is therefore Christ the minister of sin? God forbid. Now, the reason for that is because Christ set us free from the law so that we are not found sinners. Therefore, by being justified by Christ, we are not found sinners because we are free from the law. Therefore, Christ is not the minister of sin. He doesn't accept our sin. He set us free from the law so that we are not sinners. Because where there is no law, there is no transgression. Romans 4:15. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. Okay, so Jesus set us free from the Ten Commandments. That law on adultery, if we re-establish the laws for adultery, we are building again the things which it says but it should really be Jesus destroyed, I feel like. But it says I destroyed. But the law has been blotted out and nailed to the cross. Maybe he's saying I destroyed because it was we. It was we who nailed the Lord to the cross. We killed Jesus. So maybe we destroyed. So maybe that's why it says I. But if we build that law back up, if we re-establish those blotted out letters, the ordinances, the ordinance of commandments that Jesus has blotted out, if we undo the blotting and write that back down again and make that the law once again for today, then what do? We make ourselves a transgressor again because we're not keeping the law. We'd then be struggling with it every day again. Sinning, repenting, the struggle of sin. We make ourselves a transgressor again after it's been blotted out. For I, through the law, am dead to the law. I know that people find it hard to understand, but I'm dead to the seventh commandment. The seventh commandment, I don't know it. It doesn't know me. We have nothing to do with each other. We're dead to each other. That I might live on to God. I'm not living on to the seventh commandment. I'm not living on to the fourth commandment. I'm not living on to the fifth commandment. I'm not living on to any of the commandments. I live on to God. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I have now, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness comes by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. I went over that, so I don't need to go over that one again. So, yeah, I'm going to leave that there, guys. I hope it's a blessing to you. And if you've joined late, then I highly recommend going back to the beginning and watching from the beginning. And no, it's not my backyard. If you do a Google search for flower garden, it will pretty much be the first stock photo that you find. And yeah, it's just a stock photo that I got from the internet. It's just a flower garden. And for me, it's I've gone with that because I'm wanting to get back to Eden, the ways that we lived when before the fall, and I'm wanting to return to the Garden of Eden. So for me, that picture is symbolic of what life could be like if we all return to Eden. That for me is like a little picture of the Garden of Eden, even though it's probably not, because I think that the Garden of Eden would have had a lot more food crops in it, whereas this is mainly flowers. You can't see much edibles in there. I think that it's missing some edibles, but yeah, it's certainly. Oh, and once again, my headset turned off. So it must turn off every 30 minutes then, guys, because we're 1 hour 30 in, and that's the third time it's turned off. So maybe I could plug it in. I wonder if that would plug in the charger to it. Well, I'm not going for another 30 minutes anyway. So yeah. So as I say, if you joined late, guys, go back to the beginning and watch it from the beginning. And I hope you've liked it. And if you're a new watcher, subscribe as well. God bless you all. And yeah, peace and blessings. I'll see you on the next one. Over and out.